You are listening to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This timeless masterpiece has remained a cornerstone of personal development literature since its publication in 1936, and its wisdom continues to resonate powerfully in our modern world. After all, who among us wouldn't benefit from stronger social connections? And who couldn't use greater persuasive power in their professional life? We all have room to enhance our interpersonal abilities and communication prowess, and that's precisely what this transformative guide offers. You'll uncover straightforward, practical strategies that will help you achieve your goals in virtually any social encounter. This comprehensive roadmap to human connection is your ultimate resource for building meaningful relationships and experiencing more fulfilling personal and professional interactions. Blending compelling real-world stories with immediately applicable guidance, it's packed with proven techniques that have already transformed the lives of countless individuals across generations. Through this exploration, you'll discover why harsh criticism should be completely avoided, what lessons in leadership can be drawn from the infamous Al Capone, and how our four-legged friends can teach us invaluable lessons about forming genuine connections. The power of appreciation over condemnation. Consider the notorious Al Capone for a moment. Your mind likely conjures images of organized crime, ruthless violence, and underground criminal enterprises. Whatever you know about this infamous figure, you probably wouldn't describe him as a philanthropist or community benefactor. However, one person saw him differently: Capone himself. In his own words, "I have devoted the prime years of my existence providing people with entertainment and joy, helping them enjoy life, and all I receive in return is persecution, living like a hunted animal." This feared criminal who terrorized Chicago genuinely believed he was fundamentally a decent person. What insight can we gain from this? Much like Al Capone, we all tend to view ourselves as justified in our actions, regardless of what we've actually done. If we find it challenging to be self-critical, imagine how we react when others point out our flaws. The fundamental issue with condemning others is that it triggers their defensive mechanisms. Individuals take criticism as a personal attack when confronted with their mistakes. Their immediate response is to rationalize their conduct. Even more damaging, people often harbor long-lasting resentment toward those who criticize them, even when the feedback was constructive and well-meaning. What's the alternative approach? While it's true that people occasionally need guidance to modify their behavior, if criticism isn't the answer, what is? The solution is remarkably straightforward. We can appreciate them instead. Everyone craves recognition and significance, and heartfelt words of acknowledgement can bring you much closer to your desired outcome than endless criticism and complaints. This was the guiding principle of Charles Schwab, an extraordinarily successful steel industry leader. Schwab attributed his remarkable business achievements to his exceptional ability to work with people. Unlike most executives, Schwab made every effort to minimize criticism of others. Instead, he concentrated on recognizing and celebrating their contributions. Throughout his extensive business career, Schwab discovered that you can accomplish far more through encouragement and recognition than through criticism. Positive reinforcement motivates us to perform at higher levels and creates much more harmonious relationships, creating meaningful connections through genuine interest. Imagine this scenario. You return home after an exhausting workday, and the moment you step through the door, your dog comes racing toward you. Her tail is wagging enthusiastically, and she's leaping with pure joy. You can't help but beam at your adorable, loyal companion. If you're a dog owner, you understand exactly why these animals make such beloved pets. It's because of the way they make us feel. Dogs excel as companions because they're incapable of concealing their genuine affection for us. There's a valuable principle we can learn from our canine friends, one that can help you attract human friendships with similar ease and authenticity. What's the human equivalent of this unconditional canine devotion? How do you demonstrate your goodwill toward a new person you've just met and earn their positive regard in return? First, you should abandon the effort to appear fascinating yourself. This approach is ineffective. People seldom show much interest in the specifics of other people's personal lives or pastimes. Instead, they're primarily concerned with themselves and their own experiences. Therefore, the fastest route to someone's heart is demonstrating that you're genuinely interested in them as well. How can you accomplish this? Begin by expressing authentic delight when meeting someone new. Offer them a warm smile and greet them with enthusiasm. Make a conscious effort to remember their name and ensure you use it throughout your conversation. In essence, show people that you're genuinely pleased to be in their presence. But don't stop there. If you truly want to create a lasting positive impression, being warm and interested isn't sufficient. You must also make them feel significant and valued. A landscape inspector who participated in one of the author's workshops learned this principle through direct experience. This professional once praised a client's exceptional purebred dogs, which sparked an extended discussion about the client's deep passion for dog breeding. The respect and authentic interest that the inspector demonstrated not only established a warm business relationship, it also resulted in the client presenting him with an expensive, champion bloodline puppy as a farewell gift. When you show others that you're genuinely fascinated by them and respect their perspectives, you'll frequently receive remarkable and unexpected benefits. The art of listening and encouraging others to share. During the tumultuous period of the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln called upon an old friend from his hometown to visit the White House for consultation. Upon his arrival, Lincoln spent the entire evening discussing the potential emancipation of enslaved people in the southern states. Was this the right decision? How would the nation respond? Lincoln deliberated extensively throughout the night, weighing every advantage and disadvantage of each possible action. Then, without receiving a single word of counsel from his longtime friend, he concluded the discussion, expressed his gratitude to his neighbor, and sent him on his way. Ultimately, Lincoln hadn't required an advisor. He had access to many of those. What he desperately needed was someone who would simply listen. Like Lincoln, we all treasure good listeners, yet they seem to be increasingly rare. We all enjoy discussing ourselves, our accomplishments, our concerns, our histories, and our aspirations. However, this isn't the path to winning friends. In fact, it's the surest way to lose them. No one appreciates individuals who dominate conversations. If you want to create a positive first impression and capture people's hearts, adopt the opposite strategy. Encourage them to share their stories and interests, and listen with genuine attention to what they reveal. Want to develop a friendship with the new person at work? Try posing open-ended questions that they might enjoy exploring, such as how they're adjusting to their new role or what hobbies bring them joy. And remember, stay focused. If you're going to seem distracted and disinterested while others speak, it's better not to encourage them to talk at all. Take inspiration from Theodore Roosevelt, who recognized that engaging people on subjects they find captivating is a guaranteed method for building friendships. Before every important meeting, Roosevelt would study materials related to one of his guests' favorite topics. This preparation enabled him to have knowledgeable and enjoyable conversations with anyone about their personal interests and hobbies. While Roosevelt's approach was effective, you don't necessarily need to invest that much preparation time. Simply share the spotlight, Ask thoughtful questions and listen with genuine attention. Before long, drawing people out will become natural, and forming friendships will be effortless. Handling disagreements with grace and subtlety. How do you emerge victorious in a disagreement? By entangling your opponent in complex logical contradictions. By demonstrating that your evidence and statistics are unquestionably accurate. Or by skillfully revealing some reasoning error in your opponent's argument. None of these approaches is advisable. If you triumph in an argument using these methods, your opponent will develop lasting resentment toward you. And if your opponent harbors resentment, you can be certain they'll never genuinely agree with your position. When disagreements escalate into full confrontations, nobody truly wins. Whenever possible, it's best to avoid them entirely. However, sometimes a disagreement is unavoidable, so if you find yourself in a situation where you must present your case, there are several important guidelines to remember. If you want to convince someone that your position is correct, never use the phrase, "you're wrong." Stating your case so directly won't persuade your opponent to embrace your perspective. Instead, they'll take offense, strengthen their own beliefs, and do everything possible to prove you incorrect. A diplomatic and gentle approach is far more likely to succeed. Rather than attempting to prove your point through force, try to guide your opponent toward your conclusions through friendly exploration and inquiry. But how do you encourage someone who disagrees with you to cooperate? The secret is simply acknowledging the possibility that you might be mistaken. Try saying something like, "You know, I could be incorrect about this. Let's examine the evidence together." This approach is often sufficient to disarm even the most stubborn opponent. If you do discover that you were wrong, accept defeat gracefully and try to be the first to acknowledge your error. Admitting your mistakes proactively often encourages others to adopt a more forgiving attitude. Conversely, if you prove to be correct, don't celebrate. Your opponent is unlikely to embrace a new viewpoint if you make it feel like a humiliation. The Socratic method of gentle persuasion. Socrates, the renowned ancient Greek philosopher, mastered the delicate art of persuasion. Through asking precisely the right questions in exactly the right manner, he convinced people to accept ideas they had never previously considered. How did he achieve this? He ensured that his audience developed an agreeable mindset. This meant he got them into the habit of responding positively. And how did he accomplish that? First, he began his discussions by making statements that everyone could easily accept. Then, gradually, he steered the conversations toward more questionable territory. By emphasizing the points everyone could agree upon, he made his audience more receptive to the controversial arguments that followed. What can we learn from Socrates' approach? Socrates' persuasion technique is worth emulating. If you can get people agreeing from the very beginning, you're already halfway to convincing them you're correct. A negative response, however, should be avoided at all costs. When someone rejects one of your points, it becomes extremely difficult to change their mind. People typically become emotionally committed to defending positions they've stated publicly. After all, their reputation for wisdom and sound judgment is at stake. For the same reason, people prefer concepts that they develop themselves to those proposed by others. Promoting our own ideas gives us a sense of autonomy. Accepting those of others can sometimes feel like following orders. So how can you use this information? Rather than trying to convince others that your ideas are superior, you can help them reach those ideas independently. By getting people in an agreeable state of mind and asking questions that guide them in the right direction, you can often help others arrive at your conclusions on their own. This was the strategy that Colonel Edward M. House employed when Woodrow Wilson was president. Rather than offering Wilson direct advice, the colonel would very casually mention one of his proposals during conversation. Over time, the seed that Colonel House had planted would grow in Wilson's mind, so much so that he often believed the plan was entirely his own creation. Did House correct him? Absolutely not. He understood that people prefer their own ideas to those of others. Understanding others' perspectives, J. Mangum faced a challenging dilemma. As a representative of an elevator maintenance company, he needed to schedule essential repairs at a hotel. Jay knew the work would require a full day, but the hotel manager insisted on limiting the shutdown to just 2 hours. What did Jay do? Did he declare that rushing the repairs was impossible? No. He took time to understand the situation from the manager's perspective. Jay acknowledged that he appreciated the manager's desire to keep guests satisfied. However, he explained that if the repairs weren't completed properly now, the elevator would require much more extensive and time-consuming repair work in the future. Not surprisingly, the manager agreed to the 8-hour shutdown. Jay successfully convinced the manager to allow the repairs to proceed because he understood his genuine concerns. Jay recognized that above all else, the manager wanted to please his guests. By acknowledging this, he was able to explain to the manager that postponing the repairs would be far more inconvenient for them in the long term. Attempting to see situations from another person's perspective is always valuable. Not only can it help resolve challenging situations like Jay's, but it can also win people's favor and create substantial goodwill. Most people appreciate empathy. When tensions escalate and emotions run high, a sympathetic phrase is often all that's needed to restore harmony. Sometimes an upset customer or distressed friend only needs to hear the words, "I completely understand your position. In your situation, I would feel exactly the same way." In fact, sympathizing with others doesn't just make them feel better. It can also help you manage frustration and impatience. By understanding the factors that influence people's behavior, you can become more tolerant of actions that once irritated and upset you. The next time someone's behavior disturbs you, pause for a moment and try to see things from their perspective. Why might your colleague be underperforming? Is there something kind or understanding you could do to help them get back on track? Extending empathy isn't always easy, but for both you and the other person, it's usually better than becoming angry. Setting high expectations to inspire excellence. Ruth Hopkins, a fourth-grade teacher from Brooklyn, New York, received an unexpected surprise on the first day of school. She had been assigned a new class for the year and discovered that Tommy, the school's biggest troublemaker, was now among her students. Though he was intelligent, Tommy was extremely disruptive. His previous teacher had complained about him constantly. How would Ruth handle this challenge? Fortunately, she had a strategy. On the first day, Ruth went around the classroom and complimented each student. When she reached Tommy, Ruth looked at him directly and told him she'd heard he was a natural-born leader. She said she was counting on him to make her class the best among all the fourth graders that year. With such an outstanding reputation to maintain, Tommy's behavior improved dramatically. We humans thrive on praise, and we despise disappointing people who believe in us. When we commend someone's reputation, we can utilize both these facts. Our admiring words reward them for what they've already accomplished and also establish a high standard for future performance. In other words, if you want someone to develop a particular quality, speak of them as though they already possess it. If you'd like your child to be more generous, praise her for sharing with others. Establish an aspirational reputation for her as a generous and giving child. A dentist named Dr. Martin Fitzhugh used exactly this technique when he noticed that his office cleaner's standards seemed to be declining. A patient had complained that the dentist's metal cup holder was dirty. Sure, it was just the cup holder, but it was an oversight that made Dr. Fitzhugh appear unprofessional. Rather than scolding his cleaner, however, he wrote her a very gracious and appreciative note thanking her for her excellent work and commending her diligence. Then, as a small side note, he mentioned that he could pay her extra from time to time if she needed to work longer occasionally, just to take care of occasional things like the cup holder. The result? From that point forward, the cleaner's work improved dramatically, and she never once had to work overtime. Praising others and letting them know that you appreciate their efforts is generous, but it's also a smart way of ensuring they'll try at least as hard in the future. If you can make this a habit and combine it with the other strategies contained in this summary, you'll soon find it easier to make new friends and improve existing relationships. Final thoughts. To summarize, becoming truly influential involves making an effort to understand the perspectives of those around you. Everyone wants to be heard, understood, and made to feel important. If you can provide these things for other people, you'll consistently find favor. Here's one final piece of advice: create a challenge. If you find yourself repeatedly trying and failing to motivate workers, try awakening their natural sense of competition. All you need to do is find a way to evaluate your employees' performances and then acknowledge the top performers publicly. Very often you won't even need to provide a prize. Healthy competitiveness is sometimes all it takes to energize a sluggish workforce. The principles in this timeless guide aren't just theoretical concepts. They're practical tools that can transform your relationships, advance your career, and enrich your life. By implementing these strategies consistently, you'll discover that human connections become more natural, conversations flow more easily, and your ability to positively influence others grows exponentially. If you enjoyed this book summary, smash the like button and subscribe for more. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.